Hello, and welcome to TK, Coach on the Rocks. Lovely to see you, and I'm hoping that you're having a wonderful week. Today, I wanted to talk about false urgency. It's maybe because the reason that I've started my stream like 20 seconds early, but hopefully, you're here now, and I can see you tuning in, which is great. So, welcome everyone. So, what's false urgency? The false urgency, or more importantly, I think the culture of false urgency, is a situation where the organization creates this feeling of urgency for various reasons, and people constantly work in some kind of a crisis. Now, the way it works is in a given organization, urgency becomes the norm. Everyone needs to show that what they're doing is being done from the perspective of urgency. Everything needs to be rapid, quick, and just very haphazard sometimes. What happens is there are situations where sense of urgency is natural. Right? You might remember, obviously, 2020, the health emergency of COVID. Many public political leaders or people that were responsible for leading countries in any country that you're in had to make quick, rapid decisions to counteract the public health emergency. And now, years after, obviously these decisions are being scrutinized, and I guess in most countries, if not every country, because we can't really tell, many of these decisions appear really controversial now, and some of them were plain wrong. And yeah, investigations and sometimes even criminal cases are in progress based on that. But there obviously in many cases there was foul play, but in others it was just the fact that things absolutely needed to be done with utmost urgency from a perspective of the organization, because really a government is quick and agile. Yeah, and it needed to be done very quickly, so a different culture. But that's a real case of real urgency. But sometimes an organization creates false urgency to get things moving within itself, right? To get things done. And the question is, why is that happening? And for many reasons, come down to the anxiety of leaders, that they think the organization isn't necessarily working as it should, and this is not why are they sponsoring, paying all these people while they just move around sluggishly, right? That's the anxiety speaking from a given leaders. And you can clearly see it in the people team too when you're talking to leaders and they tell you all these things. So they do create the sense of urgency, but it's false. And I think it's really not something that works. Superficially, people learn to do things urgently. But what it creates is a culture of busyness. Right? Everyone finds ways to show that they're actually working, show they're actually busy, so they don't have to do things as urgently as they would need. Right? There's always a bit of an excuse. So instead of being able to quickly react, the opposite happens. And I'm sure you can see it in many organizations, and possibly even including the one that you work with. It's a huge challenge. So if urgency comes from the anxiety of leaders, there's something that really needs to be looked at. And I think, an agile leader reflects, but any agile leader should really reflect on themselves and when they're doing it. I think, even if people are doing things urgently, even if the situation and this culture is so pervasive, it can just lead to these difficult and silly decisions that can be made, like things were done in some countries during COVID times. Some decisions were obviously right, but many of them are now being scrutinized. So I would say, don't create false urgency. There's enough urgency in the world to go on, and I think it's the opposite of what you should be doing. You should essentially, in my mind, foster the culture of authenticity, foster the culture of communication, and talk about the situation as it is. So when a real crisis arrives, you will be able to master the real urgency that's there through the feeling of mission, through the value of really doing the right thing, instead of constantly having this urgency, which leads to, I would say, urgency adaptation, which is people just constantly behave as if they're busy, even though they're just sometimes producing the work for themselves, which is another problem altogether. Essentially, hopefully, if you are the one responsible for creating the false sense of urgency, think about it. Sense of urgency is needed, but think about why and really talk to people about what's important in the right amount of urgency. And it's probably best not to overdo it. With that, you may have a sense of urgency to go to other meetings, prepare for your day. After all, it's probably around 10, yeah, it's 10:50 UK time. But the day will pass and I will see you tomorrow at 9:45 for the next episode of Coach on the Rocks. See you. Bye bye.